We've become very familiar with Doctor Who animations over the years. We've seen 2D, 3D, 1 episode to 7 episodes, but what we never got much of was the first Doctor. Of the 12 animations up to the Evil of the Daleks, only 2 involved animating our favourite space grandad. Excluding Shada, the 3 episodes we've had only make up about 5% of everything, so it seemed about time for the second Doctor to take a break. 8 years, 2 months and 22 days after the animation of the 10th Planet Episode 4 was released on the Regeneration box set, a teaser for the next missing episode animation was put out, with the release of this animation coming 2 months later and seeing the return of William Hartnell in animated form. The Doctor, Vicky and Stephen land on a planet on the verge of total annihilation as it drifts too close to the sun it orbits. Trapped on the planet with the warrior Dravins and the reptilian Rills, the Doctor is forced to help the Dravins while trying to maintain peace between the two races. On the 17th of August 1967, BBC Enterprises signed off on wipe and junk authorization forms for the majority of the William Hartnell episodes of Doctor Who. The 2-inch transmission tapes of episodes 1, 2 and 4 were included in the forms. Less than 2 years later, in January 1969, episode 3 would be included in another batch of these forms. Research in 1976 found that Galaxy 4 was in fact still available in its entirety, but when a purchase order was made for a screening in 1978, BBC Enterprises made an official statement declaring all master material has been destroyed. Years later, on Monday the 8th of July 2011, Ralph Montague met up with his co-workers at a local cafe. He was introduced to Terry Burnett, who used to work at Television South in Southampton, and a keen collector of old films. Burnett mentioned to Montague that in his collection was an old episode of Doctor Who. At their next meeting, Burnett had dug out the 16mm film of his Doctor Who episode and lent it off to Montague. The film can only offered small clues as to the contents. It was not an original BBC film tin, and there were no BBC labels on either the can or the film spool. A small label with the title of the film had seemingly been crossed out, but underneath this were the words Doctor Who and Airlock. What Montague had discovered was indeed the missing 3rd episode of Galaxy 4. The print itself was in reasonably good condition. Moderate tramline scratches are present, most noticeable in a close-up of Marga, and the final 27 seconds of action, plus the end credits, were all missing. A copy was eventually made on the 20th of July, and a 2K scan was made a few days later, mainly for preservation purposes. It was later revealed that the film was once the ABC transmission print from Australia, returned in June 1975, and then presumably appropriated by someone from the BBC. As stated before, this release of Galaxy 4 finally saw the return of the first Doctor in animated form, and, while technically a mostly different team, was helmed by Big Finish Creative, the only team to have officially animated this era. Big Finish Creative were coming off the back of Fury from the Deep and the co-production of The Web of Fear, 2 animations that weren't particularly praised overall by fans. This entirely animated production even marks the first time any episode of William Hartnell's era has been on a dedicated Blu-ray. The choice of this story for the animation was certainly unexpected, but due to its good audio quality, small set number, and limited cast, it was a cheaper story to undertake. The cast was shrunk even further, making all the Dravins except Marga identical. For Fury from the Deep, a muted colour palette for the southern British seasides was incorporated, lots of greys, browns and dark greens. But if Fury from the Deep was foreboding, then this was going to be eccentrically technicolor, in comparison with the look of 1950s sci-fi B-movies. Huge wraps of red were used for the planet, and its skies based on photos of Australia's red deserts. The light turquoise of the Dravins, the blue of Marga and the green of the Rills came out of discussion with Peter Purvis, along with deciding what Stephen and Vicky's costumes look like. Similar to the special edition of The Power of the Daleks, Vicky's patterned dress was simplified to a solid olive green colour for easier animation. Additionally, this is the first time the first Doctor was to be animated in colour, as well as in a 16:9 aspect ratio. I'm not including the opening of the Power of the Daleks animation in all this, by the way, which notably was the first animation to receive a colour version and all that jazz. I just don't think it counts in this instance, and it's my video so I can do what I want. I felt that the release of this animation was significantly overshadowed by the release of Series 13, but additionally doesn't really live up to its predecessor. The Star Trek 60s look doesn't really live up to the praise given by Gary Russell, especially in the Rills ship, as well as the high detail in the Dravin ship, really contrasting the simple characters in a way that doesn't feel right to me. The overall design and artwork, however, is definitely an improvement to me over Fury from the Deep, with more convincing characters and locations that bring the story together. The character movement, while very well done, falls apart a small amount for me when there are wider shots. A lot of the time it feels like the characters are hovering and not actually a part of their environment. However, this is not always the case, and when there is movement towards and away from the camera, the perspective can work to sell the environment. As of the making of this video, the next missing episode animation is yet to be announced. Strong contenders are The Abominable Snowmen, The Underwater Menace, and The Wheel in Space, but feel free to let me know what you think will be the next missing episode animation. Thanks for watching. I know it's been a while, so I knew I had to get this video out quickly. It's currently the day before this video is scheduled for release, so I'm working as hard as I can. As I've said before, I have some videos in the pipeline, but I also really want to do something for Christmas, so I guess we'll see what happens. As always, I'm Sam, and I'll see you next time.